Core Destabilizers are a new item that came with the Incursion League mechanic. Their description reads they modify a soul core unpredictably. You find them from completing the Chamber of Souls room when it's at tier 3. In truth, there's 4 outcomes when it comes to using a core destabilizer. First, it destroys the soul core altogether. Second, the soul core is duplicated. Third, it transforms into a new soul core. And finally, the soul core is changed into an ancient soul core. Ancient soul cores can only be obtained through this process. I'm LobotQ, and today we're going to be using these to make some currency. When using core destabilizers, you only want to use them on worthless soul cores. You do not, and I repeat, do not want to use them on good soul cores to try and duplicate them. Trust me, you'll be disappointed in the outcomes. This method is profitable late league because you can pick up so many destabilizers for cheap, as well as worthless soul cores for a few exalts. Earlier in the league, the conversion was about 1 to 10 for destabilizers, so always be aware of the current exchange values. Of course, profits can always be made, but it's not a method at those rates, it's simply gambling, and I'll go over a minimum exchange is needed for it to be viable later. This is a full tab I have of exchange values, and you can see I purchased a lot of cheap soul cores for 2 exalts. Don't worry, for the cost calculations, I will use like 10 to 15 exalt per, so don't get your panties in a bunch. Some of the more valuable soul cores can sell for multiple divines. We can see as Kappa sells for 6 divines for 1. Some of the ancient soul cores can sell for 5 divines per, and off first glance, it's quite easy to see it wouldn't take that many good soul cores to outweigh the cost. Now, I do want to put this caution in here. We are late league right now, and there's not many soul cores on the market. Do not get fooled if it says 1 as Kappa equals 1 divine, for example. Here are the exchange rates you should be using for all valuable soul cores. There are some other soul cores as well that will be worth a decent amount of exalts or possibly 1 divine. You will have to wait a little bit of time for your orders to fill, but just run a couple of maps or come back tomorrow and you'll have those divines waiting for you. For this method, you need 3 things: core destabilizers, cheap or worthless soul cores, and gold to exchange these items into divine profits. The method is easy. Fill your inventory or stash tab with core destabilizers and cheap soul cores. We can see that I've got about 570 core destabilizers here, and I'm using the Opaloti soul core just because it's super cheap. All you have to do is activate the soul core and then get to spamming. The only thing that you have to pay attention to is when you are on the last soul core in a stack. When you activate the destabilizer, it may turn into another soul core, but it will still be in the same slot. So if you are just spamming, you may accidentally delete something of value. We can see it changed into something that is still not of value, so it would have been fine to use another destabilizer, but you always want to be aware of that. Let's fast forward through this part. Enjoy the music. Alright, so we've used all of our core destabilizers. I'm just going to do some inventory management just to kind of separate the high values now, and we're just going to edit to that. Alright, so I have filtered through all of the soul cores, and I've kind of separated them out. On the left, we have our ancient soul cores. In the middle here, we have the high value soul cores, and then these are like lower mid-tier soul cores that are worth a few exalts, and then the rest is junk. The method is super easy and quick to perform, which is great. The only waiting is your orders for the currency exchange, as well as just sifting through all of this loot. For costs and profits, I'm going to overvalue the costs and undervalue the profits to keep a realistic expectation for you guys, as I know the release of this video may affect the market. So the total costs were 570 core destabilizers, which is about 13 divines at the current market. So let's say 15 divines to be safe. Roughly 400 cheap soul cores because some were duplicated, but we're going to go with 500. These soul cores were bought at 2 exalts per, but we're going to go with 10 exalts per for, again, inflation. That's 5,000 exalts for 500 soul cores at an exchange of 1 divine for 200 exalts. That equals 25 divines. Therefore, our total costs were 38 divines. Obviously, this is much higher than actual costs. This method took me roughly 15 minutes to do, but I did have to wait overnight for some of these orders to fill, so I'm hoping for at least 50 divines to consider it a decent method. Alright, let's calculate our revenue now, and so I can butcher the pronunciation of these things. We had a total of 12 ancient theses. We had 2 Guadalitzis, 6 Jaquanis, and 4 Sitiquilados. For high value soul cores, we had 12 Jaquanis, we had 6 as Kappas, 17 Foulness, 4 Flows, and 8 Zelatals. So now I'm going to use the cheat sheet I've created, and let's do 2 calculations, an actual profit and a severely undervalued profit. So for the severely undervalued profit, let's just say all of these equaled 1 divine each. Our total would come out to 59 divines because there is 59 cores here. So that would bring our profits to 21 divines. Even from a severely undervalued standpoint, we can see that there's definitely a margin for profit, but let's get into the actual profits now. I will write out all of the high value items and their respective amount of divines. We can see the total revenue was 140 divines, making our profit be 102 divines. Now, even if you were to trim off, say, 20 to 30 divines, with a cost of only 38 divines, and that being severely overvalued, we can see that there is definitely a room for good profit, and the method is fairly short. But let's switch over into some probability and statistics now. For example, what is the likelihood of getting one of these ancient theses? And maybe you are unlucky and you want to just see what are the types of things that you could get. So let's switch gears into the probability and statistics of things now. Let's treat everything I just did as an experiment. This whole method can be treated as a multinomial probability distribution, which can sound confusing, but it's similar to calculations of rolling different numbers using a dice, but the probability of each outcome is not equal. A multinomial distribution is a group of binomial distributions, so if you've watched any of my previous videos, the calculations are the same. A binomial distribution is the number of successes in a fixed amount of attempts. I've explained this in other videos, but it's like flipping a coin and determining how many times you will get heads or tails. From our experiment, I kept track of each soul core, which means our probability of getting each specific soul core is our amount divided by 570, since that was our total amount of trials. We can combine the probabilities together as well by adding them. For example, let's say I added all the ancient soul cores I got together, which is 12, and divided by 570. This probability is our chance to get an ancient soul core. And if I wanted to, I could just take each soul core and take our probability of getting each one. However, I did not get one of the ancient soul cores, so that would not be possible. You can decide which probability you will consider a success for yourself, but I'm going to split them between ancient soul cores and high value. Using the formula for binomial distribution as I can show here, we can now calculate the odds of getting a certain amount of valuable soul cores as well as their expected value. The expected value for this whole scenario will be the amount that we got for each soul core, since we don't have any baseline to go off of. Using the findings from our experiment, let's calculate the chances of getting 3 or more ancient soul cores using Destabilizers. Our odds are equal to 1 minus the chance of getting no ancients, getting 1 ancient, and getting 2 ancients. The result is 35.21%. These odds are not the best, but they will go up if you calculated 1 or more, for example, and if you only take into consideration that we're only checking for ancients. We also have high value soul cores, and the probability for getting any of the high value ones is roughly 8.25%. You can do the calculations the same way, but let's say we combine the probabilities together of ancient and high value soul cores, giving us a chance of 10.4%. This will be our probability of getting anything good at all. If Destabilizers were 1 divine to 10 and cheap soul cores were 1 soul core to 10 exalts, making 80 soul cores be worth roughly 4 divines, our cost would be 14 divines. If each valuable item that we got was only worth 1 divine, we can expect 10 out of 100, putting us at a net loss. Therefore, I'd only recommend this if you can pick up soul cores for 15 exalts or less, when Destabilizers are about 1 divine for 25 of them, to at least make smaller profits or guarantee you break even. Additionally, I've also calculated confidence intervals for the probabilities of the 3 scenarios. Confidence intervals were calculated because obviously the game has a lot of variance, but since I did so many with being 570, I can calculate these intervals using the normal distribution. Basically, these intervals state that I am 95% confident that the true probabilities of each of these scenarios lies in these ranges. From here, you could use some of the lower bound numbers to recalculate your chances, or the higher bound if you're feeling a little bit risky and you think it's on the higher end. If you have any questions, leave a comment. And if you like this sort of content, hit the like button and subscribe to support the channel. All in all, if you're late to the league or just trying to get a few more divines, give this method a go. Profit crafting isn't as viable around this time since most people have quit the league. I tried a different editing style approach with this video as well, so let me know your thoughts below. As always, I hope you learned something, and I'll catch you in the next one, Exiles.